So we'll start the session by uh, paying our obeisances to Srila Prabhupada, who is founder Acharya of ISKCON, and also to our initiating spiritual master, His Holiness Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, and also to our instructing spiritual master, His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj. So we are on our journey to, self-realization. We are studying Bhagavad Gita. We are on chapter 2, which is titled as Contents of Gita Summarized, right? And this chapter has 72 verses, and we have already covered uh, till 37. We covered last time. Today we'll be, you know, discussing. We'll touch base on verse 38 and maybe 39, and primarily we will be talking about yoga ladder, right? Why there are different types of yoga introduced, and what is the purpose, what is the meaning, what is the relationship, all that, and which is the highest. Okay, so the section is Nishkam Karma Yoga, also known as Buddhi Yoga. So detached work without reaction, right? So briefly, these were the reasons put forward by Arjuna, and in chapter 2, Krishna will reply majority of them, right? That how, your compassion is not rightly placed, right? It's not by not fighting that you will enjoy, but by fighting, you will enjoy, which we have already seen in our previous session. And fear of sinful reactions, Krishna briefly touched in 2.33, right? It is by, running away from your duty that you will get sin. And also that if you do your duty without attachment and with proper knowledge, then you will not attain sin, right? And then, how this family tradition and all is not important, right? The most important is that you follow instructions of Krishna, right? Which will help you to actually go beyond, just looking narrowly towards your family traditions. But main thing is spirituality, right? And then about indecision as well. So the highlight so far has been that Arjuna wanted to avoid war due to fear of sinful reaction, right? And then Krishna told that it is by avoiding your duty that you will incur sin, right? And to motivate Arjuna to fight. For Arjuna, it was fight, and for us, it is, our duties, right? So to motivate Arjun to fight, Krishna first explained jnana, right, from 2.11 to 30, relationship between body and soul, and that how we are eternal and body is temporary. And then from 3.1 to 3.7, Krishna talked about karma, right, the work, right? So he has talked about both. And now moving forward, um, Krishna is asking Arjun, work with knowledge, right? He has talked about jnana, he has talked about work, but now he will talk about combining the both and work with detachment as an offering to Lord, right? Which is known as Nishkam Karma Yoga or Karma Yoga, right? So that is important for us to understand. So in this section, Krishna will explain how one can avoid all reactions by performing one's duty with detachment from the results of our action, right? So we'll discuss with different examples and how, what and how Krishna is going to explain this to Arjun. Now, in verse, as I was saying in 2.37, Krishna talked about that, it is a win-win situation. Whether you go to heavenly planets or on earthly, you will enjoy. But in 2.38, Krishna put forward this thing. Now, anyone will like to read this Sanskrit words?
I will read Sumit.
Mhm.
सुखदुःखे समीकृत्वा लाभालाभौ जयाजयौ Tato yuddhaya yujyasva naivam papamavapsyasi.
Thank you. Thank you, Shanmukji. Anyone will like to read the translation?
I'll read.
Mhm.
Do thou fight for the sake of fighting, without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat, and by so doing you shall never incur sin.
Mm, right. So here, as we were talking, that Krishna changes gears, you know, and that is what he will do repeatedly in Bhagavad Gita. You will see that, right? From Karm Kanda, now he's shifting to Karm Yoga, right? Fight for the sake of fighting, without considering happiness or distress. It's sukha dukhe, samay kritva, labha labho, loss or gain, jaya jayo, victory or defeat. Go above and beyond. Just focus on your duty. So basically it is equanimity in duality. Whatever the situation is, you know, be um, be equanimous, right? So we also saw in verse number 2.14 where Krishna said, "Matra spashashtu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukhadaha agama payano nityas tam titikshva bharatah," right? Uh, where he said that all these things, right? The sukha and dukh, it will keep coming and going. The way the weather changes, what you have to do, tam titikshva bharata, just tolerate, right? And here also he's saying, and thereafter in 2.15 he said that a person who is equanimous in these differing situations is eligible for liberation, right? And here Krishna is highlighting that fact, uh, that just do your duty. No, it's not just do your duty. It is basically, Prabhupada explains in the purport, Krishna is saying here, do your duty as directed by me. You know, don't you don't think about your enjoyment. You don't think about your distress, right? You keep aside your own compassion, right? Because these things are not going to lead you to anywhere, right? So, but if you listen to me, then you know that is the most important thing. That is your swadharma, that is your sanatan dharma, which you should be doing, right? So because Krishna talked about jnana and then karma kanda and now nishkam karma, I thought it will be good if I introduce you to these different yogas and how they are all connected to the epitome of yoga, which is bhakti yoga, right? So we'll briefly touch upon these things. So first thing is people who are Duryodhana category, right? They will always act against scriptures, right? And they are basically atheist. They are against God. They don't believe, in scriptures, right? And they will do all sinful activities, right? All unethical things, illegal things, right? Um, so they are nowhere in the yoga ladder, right? They are, if you see in Kali Yuga, majority of the population falls maybe in this category. They are not even touching the yoga ladder, right? Now there are others who fall in the category of karma kanda, right? Or what some authors say as sakam karma, right? So now please note a difference. there are two words, Karma Kand and Karma Yoga, right? What is the difference between the two? They are both karma, but what is the difference?
I think Krishna.
Yes. Why? You know, not not always primarily Krishna, which I will explain you, but the word yoga is added. That means it has some relationship with Krishna, in one or the other form, right? So Karm Kand is basically a person who is acting according to the scriptures, but their primary aim is enjoyment, sense gratification. Prabhupada uses this word very often, sense gratification. Sense gratification in our layman language, we can say enjoyment, our own enjoyment, right? So looking for our own sense gratification. And for them, they have no desire, no interest in making any kind of spiritual advancement. Now, as this is Karma Kanda, this again doesn't fall in the yoga system. But the good part is there's one thing in it. Can anyone highlight what is little good part in this?
Respecting the scriptures, at least.
Very nice. That is the most important point. They are at least they're better than those atheists. Those atheists also want to enjoy, right? And these people also want to enjoy. But at least these people, they are respecting the authority of Vedas. They are respecting the authority of scriptures. They are adhering to scriptures. And that adherence to scripture is actually the starting point for their spiritual enlightenment. Because what happens is that if, for example, there are many people, who, they want to enjoy. The only purpose is enjoyment and sense gratification and all that. And for that, they will do everything, right? So, for example, going from here to there, like why this tourism industry is so successful, because they know people are not content where they are. You go to Bombay airport and you see there will be a lot of advertisement, fly to New York and you will see this, or fly to Singapore, you will see that, or Australia or UK and all these things, right? There's so much advertisement. If you land up in Singapore, Australia, they will say, you go and see, Gateway of India, go and see Taj Mahal, so beautiful, backwaters of Kerala, right? So they know people are not satisfied with anything. So they want to explore, they want to enjoy, they are looking forward for something. And then the others, they think, they realize that there is no real happiness on earth. And their aim is, I will get happiness on Swarga. Swarga is the place where that is the most important, right? So they abide by the scriptures, they follow the rules and regulations of the scriptures, they follow certain sacrifices mentioned in the scriptures with aim of going to Swarga. And when they are abiding by the scriptures, sometimes when they come in association of devotees, because they are pious people, somehow they are abiding by the scriptures, then fortunately the devotees will tell them, Krishna doesn't talk too highly about Swarga. Why, because even Swarga, there is birth and there is death. There may be enjoyment of some higher degree, like if you go to US or Australia, England, Singapore, or if you come out of village to a city, there may be high degree of enjoyment. But we know, who have been to these places, that there is no real enjoyment. Superficially, it may look like. That is what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Even if you go to Swarga, there is, death. There is limitation. Then why just to go to Swarga? Do something more so that you go to a place from where you don't have to come back, right? So that is the advantage of people who are following scriptures. Although the aim is, just enjoyment, but they are considered better than atheist, right? Now, what is this? As soon as lockdown is open, there is a long queue. And you know what is the first thing which opens up in after the lockdown? And this queue is for that. What is that?
Madhyapana.
Yeah.
Spirit shops.
Yeah. So this is alcohol, right? Now, this is authorized by government, right? It is not, it is unauthorized. It is authorized. It is not illegal, right? Illegal, someone, can sell illegally, but here it is government who is authorizing, right? And people are buying. But we know what is the result of this, right? I hope you understood, So why we are comparing this with Karm Kanda? That although it is authorized by scriptures, but the end result is of, it is again like a bungee jumping, going up and down. What we are aiming is something which is eternal, because our dharma is Sanatan. That is our aim. So then it starts, if people, they finally realize, we will see in this section only in verse 42 and 43, Krishna will say that men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of Vedas, which recommends various fruitive activities, right? Result and good birth and power and all those. Arjun, don't get entangled in this flowery word of Vedas. Transcend this, go above and beyond this, right? And then in 9th chapter, in verse number 20 and 21, he will specifically say, there's those who study the Vedas, right, with the aim of going to heavenly planet, they also worship me, but indirectly or wrongly. Purified of sinful reactions, they take birth in heavenly planets. But then what happens once the result of pious activities is exhausted? What will happen? They will only come back to earth. Thus, those who seek enjoyment by adhering to the principles of three Vedas achieve only repeated birth and death. Right? So, Sripad Ramanujacharya and Srila Prabhupada highlights in the purport that rather than following, Vedas, which primarily talks about, how we can sense, enjoy, and all these things, go to Swarga, do this sacrifice, we should aim at sticking to Vedanta, right? Vedanta, and the natural commentary on Vedanta is Srimad Bhagavatam, right? And the principle of Srimad Bhagavatam is devotion, right? So that is very important thing, right? So now, now starts the yoga ladder with Karma Yoga, right? Now this is first rung in the yoga ladder. This is basically the foundational principle of this Karma Yoga is what? Detachment to the results. So people, now the difference between Karma Kanda and Karma Yoga is that the word yoga is there. Yoga, as we have discussed many times, means connection. Yoga, connection between soul and super soul, right? Connection between soul and transcendence, connection between soul and Krishna, right? So that has started here, right? While people who are attached to this Karma Yoga, because we understand from the word karma means they are still attached to the work, right? But the important thing is the development of detachment from the result is there, right? The detachment from the result is there. And so this is the first step basically. And the foundational principle of this is detachment. That is very important for us to understand, right? And which is all about Nishkam Karma Yoga, right? In Karma Yoga, one still wants to perform the duty, right? And is attached to a particular kind of work. But he wants to do that for Krishna or for transcendence, right? He thinks that he's not attached to the results. Karma is the primary thing. Yoga for that person is secondary. But since the work is directed towards God, it can be called as Karma Yoga instead of pure Karma Kanda. And the same principle will apply to other yoga system until the Bhakti Yoga. Now, because these people are doing their work without attachment to the result of the work, their mind is peaceful. They are not bothered too much. You know, they're not bothered too much about annual salary increments, inflations, promotions, fame, name, and other things. And because they are not impacted by these things, they are primarily peaceful people, right? Now, generally an example is given. And, so this example is like there is someone, who goes to the temple and, he wants to do some service in the temple. He will, he will do only the thing which he wants to do, right? So he's, for example, he's in the temple, he will cook bhoga, right? He knows after Krishna, after bhoga is offered to Krishna, uh, devotees will eat, general public will, get that prasad, right? So he's attached to cooking, right? Uh, but there may be a person who is not only attached to a particular service, but he's also attached to the result that, how have I cooked that? The taste is it better than others or not? And I am the best cook, and this and this. There's the pride is there, right? So the part of sense enjoyment, sense gratification is there. But there is another devotee who again, is going to the temple, and he will do that seva again for cooking bhoga, right? But for him it hardly matters what others are doing, other are cooking, how they are doing and all. He will cook, he'll complete his service, and he'll go back home, right? He will not bother to ask how was it, how others do. No, nothing. So this is basically karma yoga. Now, why this person is still attached to that work? Now, if you ask that person, can you please clean the utensils? Can you please mop the floor? Can you do this other service? He will say, no, I cannot do that. I know how to cook nicely. I will only do that seva, right? But if other senior devotees or someone asks them to do, can you please clean this floor? No, I will not do. So he is still attached to that service, but he is not attached to the result, right? Does everyone, was it clear to everyone? Have you understood this difference between karma yoga and karma kanda? Then what is karma yoga? Still attached to work, but not to the result of the work. Is it clear?
Yes, Smriti.
Okay. So now the second rung of the yoga ladder is Gyan Yoga, right? Now we are,
One Smriti, if you don't mind.
pardon?
One question.
Yeah, please.
In Karma Yoga and Karma Kanda, right?
Mhm.
So coming back to the same example of cooking,
Mhm.
uh, it's not easy to have your mind detached from the result.
Mm, mm,
But um, if you're detached to that work, like you have to do the cooking nice, right? Irrespective of whether you are worried about the results or not,
mm,
you need to be attached to that cooking process, because you
mm.
can't be detached with that cooking, because otherwise it will not be good. It will be like anything.
Right.
What is that, and how do we attain that? Okay, I have to be good with this, but of course I should not worry about how it turns out later on. So any difference or anything?
So very nice question, Dipesh. So there is one thing is consciousness, right? So for example, a mother is cooking in the kitchen, right? Bhoga for our temple deities, right? Now that mother is not, you know, attached in a sense that she will put any amount of salt, right? No, no, no. She will prepare the best she can, right? But the way she's not attached means, like, if you might have seen ladies comparing and getting morose, that if something someone says, oh, it is not good and this, that, right? Or, the Karam Kanda, the main aim for them is their own enjoyment. Like, I, because I want to eat this, I want to cook this, right? And they will prepare and eat, right? There is no offering to Krishna, right? There is no devotion in it. There is no link with it. While here, the Krishna part is there. They are preparing this for Krishna. The aim is Krishna. They will prepare as good as possible, right? But they are not attached to the results, is that the result is not going to impact them, right? That is what, if you see, Krishna is telling in uh, 2.38, right? Victory or defeat, right? Sukha, dukha, jay, parajay. You should not be impacted. So that is most important thing that will determine our attachment or detachment to a particular thing. Whether we are impacted or not impacted, it does not it doesn't say anywhere that you will not do your best. A very good example of this is Hanumanji, right? Hanumanji, when he serves Ram, he will do his best. If you ask him, you know, what for are you doing? I am doing this for Ram, right? Who gave you strength? Ram gave me the strength. You know, what is the result? You know, and what will you do of the result? I will give everything to Ram, right? And what for are you doing? I'm doing it for my purification and for happiness of Ram, right? So that thing is the karma yogi will try to do his best, but not for his enjoyment. The enjoyment is of lordships.
Right, so thanks.
uh, That is a subtle difference. Yeah, but very important point. Thanks for asking this, Dipesh ji.
Right.
Now, in Gyan Yoga, we are progressively climbing on the yoga ladder. It is the second rung of the yoga ladder. Now, these people are also searching for absolute truth, right? And to start with, the mind is at peace. You know, if you see in the Karma Yoga, the mind was at peace, right? And has certain level of detachment. So these people their mind is peaceful and they have a level of detachment. But here the person specifically wants to find out about absolute truth, right? They they want to, go beyond, they are not, uh, they think their primary thinking is that because any kind of work will cause attachment, so better to avoid work, right? And the thing is that these people, the Gyan yogis, what is the limiting factor is they are still dependent on their own strength, right? They will want to do their own endeavor without any bona fide guidance. Like, for example, trying to become a doctor without entering a medical college, you know. So, but because they are seeking knowledge and they have a degree of detachment, you know, their mind becomes purified, right? And as I told you, they are not at all interested in any kind of action because they think all the actions, they fall into either of the three categories. Either they are in ignorance, passion, or goodness. And you know, we don't want to get entangled into these actions, right? And their primary focus is to discern spirit from knowledge, right? You know, they're more like, you know, more philosophical and trying to understand, and you know, uh, trying to go deep into the philosophies, you know, and trying to follow those things to gain knowledge, right? To try to understand one of the features of absolute truth. And primary, their aim is to you know, achieve Brahman realization, the impersonal realization. That is what they do. The primary focus is to gain knowledge, you know, go deep, and aim is to, you know, the max what they can reach is the Brahman realization, right? So that is what the Gyan Yogis are. But now what happens is, because what they have is, because their heart is purified, right? And they are trying to gain some knowledge. Now, the higher than them are Dhyan Yogis.
Sumit, one question on
Hmm.
Jnana Yoga.
Hmm.
So even to achieve the knowledge of absolute truth, they have to make an effort.
Hmm.
Studying the scriptures have to be still done,
Hmm.
and contemplate on the ultimate truth.
Hmm.
Still, they have to do all that. So it is still action. It is
Ah,
not inaction.
right. So action in a sense of doing any karmic activity, right?
Mm.
Their,
Physical activity.
yeah, you know, so
Mm.
their action, so that is very important point, Shanmukh, that physical activity. Now their thing is, they the activity is scriptural study, right? Their thing is only studying the Vedas. They are not going to end. One more biggest limiting factor for Gyan Yoga in Kali Yuga is that a most important primarily requisite of Gyan and Dhyan is sannyasa and the whole environment, right? If you see, and these things were primarily, even, yes, they can get you uh, to the, at least to Brahman realization, and Dhyan Yoga to, you know, Paramatma realization. And sometimes Dhyan Yogi, if they, you know, touch with the Bhakti Yogi, they can also achieve Vaikuntha. But the thing is, you know, it's like uh, during the Corona season, we have seen there are people, just because they didn't take proper care of themselves, they were infected, they didn't take care of themselves, they unfortunately passed away at home, right? Because there is no facility. Please try to understand. If you want to treat a severe case at home, from where will, you know, the doctors come, the whole, you know, medical management, how can these facilities be provided at home? So in Kali Yuga, we are in same situation. The environment which we need for practicing these things, the duration which we need for practicing these things, are not available in Kali Yuga, right? So that is why there is big limiting factor for that to be practiced in Kali Yuga, right? That peaceful, that pure environment, it is not there. If you see, if we, when we go in the 6th chapter, when Krishna speaks about Astanga Yoga, he describes those processes. Now, excuse me, if you see in the world today, where are we going to get that, right? And where in our Shastras, actually, it is said that in Kali Yuga, you know, uh, no one actually should be taking sannyas in a sense of this kind of karma sannyas, because it will not lead you to the result. There's no facility available. The same as I explained you a severe case of, a corona being treated at home. It will not, you will not achieve the end result. Now with this, is it clear, Shanmukji?
Yes, it's clear.
Right. Now progressing further is Dhyana Yoga. Now you might have all, it is, when we see so much propaganda about yoga, primarily it's some of the limbs of Dhyana Yoga. Now what is the limbs? Does anyone know these names of the 8 processes of this? We call Ashtang, Ashtang. Ast means 8 ang. Padmaji?
Yama, Niyama,
Mhm.
Asana, Samadhi, Dhyana, Dharana.
And Pranayam.
Pranayama, Pratyahara also.
Yeah,
Pranayama, Pratyahara.
right. So it starts with Yam Niyam. Yam Niyam means do's and don'ts. Now, if you see 99% of people, they don't know what is the Yam Niyam. No, they don't know the rules and regulations that they should not eat this, they should not do this, they should, the what we call as principles of a spiritual life, right? Yam Niyam is none of their business. Don't. Then asana, they will directly jump to asana and they will start doing some pranayam, right? Pratyahara. What is pratyahara? You ask them. Separating senses from the sense objects. They don't know. Then what is dharana? Intensifying your focus. Dhyana, more intensifications towards clarity. Now, other flaw is nowadays, Kali Yuga, Dhyana Yoga is, they say focus on light. Those who know something, they say, okay, you focus on light and this and that. But I'm sorry, the aim is samadhi. Samadhi means, again, the connection between soul and super soul. The main scriptural aim of practicing this, from dharana you go to dhyan, and then final thing is the epitome of dhyan ashtanga yoga is samadhi. Samadhi in which you are totally in your meditation towards the supreme personality of Godhead in the form of Paramatma, right? So that is what is all about. Now, when it comes to Kali Yuga, I told you, right? 99.9% they don't know what is Yam Niyam. They don't know more than what is Asan, Pranayam. They just stick to these Asan. They don't know about Dharana, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. Their purpose of doing yoga is actually sense enjoyment. They want to be healthy and happy. What will they do by being healthy? They want to enjoy. Right. So again, this is Kali Yuga. But even if someone is genuinely trying, to follow the principles of Dhyana Yoga, this is very difficult for Kali Yuga. And that is what Arjuna said to Krishna. Krishna, I can control the wind, but I cannot control the mind. And this whole process, to me, it looks very impractical. And then, as I was telling you, although Krishna briefly introduced Karam Kanda, although Krishna briefly would introduce Ashtang or some limbs of Gyan, but then what he says, what does Krishna says towards the end of 6th chapter, which is Ashtanga Yoga chapter? Does anyone remember the verse? The last verse. Yogi nam api sarvesham madgate antar atmanam Shraddhavan bhajite yo mam sameyukta tamomata. So, yogi nam api sarvesham. Of all the yogis, who is the topmost? Madgate antaratmanam, who is always thinking of me. Madmana bhava mad bhakto. Then, Shraddhavan bhajite yo mam. Shraddha, out of great faith, he is involved in loving devotional service unto me. Same Yukta Tamomata. He is the highest. That is my opinion. So again, we will see that Arjuna rejects that this is impractical, impossible, and Krishna then again reiterates and reinforces the importance of bhakti yoga. And we see example in our scriptures that even in the previous yugas, Saubari Muni example is there. He was meditating, you know, when he was in Satyuga for thousands of years. And how did his meditation broke? Because he saw, the two fishes, were having, sexual intercourse, and his mind deviated from that, and then he went out of the water, he married and all that, and then finally when he got frustrated from all that, he again came, and again he did his meditation and achieved the aim of Dhyana Yoga in Satyuga. So even in Satyuga, even inside the water in the Satyuga, if this can happen to Saubari Muni, what will happen to Kali Yuga people? You please tell me. So that is why Krishna and Arjuna rejects that as not applicable, right? Now there is another which is, which is Bhakti Yoga. Now Bhakti Yoga, why it is the highest of, all the yogas. Now there are two things. First thing is it is very fast. You know, you don't have to spend n number of years the way 10,000 years in Satyuga, spent in meditation, or 1,000 years in Treta Yoga spent in fire sacrifice, or hundreds of years of elaborate deity worship. In Kali Yuga, Kalo Tadhari Kirtanath. It is easier also. अनन्य चेता सततम योगो माम स्मृति नित्यशा तस्याहम सुलभ पार्थ तस्याहम सुलभ पार्थ नित्य युक्तस्य योगिना. So this is the verse where Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 8.14, where Krishna says tasyaham sulabha partha, a person who is engaged in devotional service to me, ananya cheta satatam, to focus, not deviating here then, his mind consciousness is focused towards me, and always. Nityasa means, he uses this word very often, nityasa satatam. So that is what, if always, and then he can achieve me, right? Tasyam, for them I am very easy, right? Now bhakti, in bhakti yoga the first word is bhakti, right? Bhakti means what? Devotional love. The component of love is there. And in love, what happens? One becomes selfless. And thus, instead of giving prominence to one's own desire, now, in Karma Yoga, the desire was work. In Gyan Yoga, the desire was to gain knowledge. In Ashtanga Yoga, still his own efforts and desire of meditating, with full efforts is there, right? Now, in Bhakti Yoga, what happens is the prominence of one desires takes backseat. One considers what is more important to my beloved. So the second part of this compound word, Bhakti Yoga, the second part is yoga takes more prominence, which is what? Linking with a God. That supersedes the desire of one's own, process, the affliction. So that is why if we see the first and the second word of this compound becomes actually one. The real love, bhakti, means full connection, right? So bhakti yoga, that is why this bhakti yoga is the topmost. Now, the second thing in this is that if you see this picture here, Krishna actually helps you. And Krishna says that in 10th chapter, in the 10th verse. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamu pantite. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So here, Krishna will give his hands. And we have seen that several times, right? That how Shanmukhi, that words from 9th chapter where Krishna says,
Ananyaschintayanto.
Ananyayas chintayanto. Huh?
Ananyaschintayanto mam ye janaah paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham.
Very nice. And here Krishna says, Yoga Shemam Vahamaham. That for those Ananyayas chintayanto mam ye jana paryupasate, that those who are always engaged, in loving me in devotion, for them, if they lack something, you know, I will fulfill that. And if they have something, I will protect that. So he's giving a guarantee. And here he's saying, Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayantite. I will give them knowledge and understanding. I will give them whatever they need to come back to me. To whom is this facility available? To those who are bhajatam priti purvakam, who are engaged in devotional service with priti purvakam, with love. Right? So this is a special, arrangement, special facilities which Krishna is giving to these devotees who are topmost in the yoga ladder. So I'm sorry, like it will take maybe 10 more minutes. I'll try to complete. We are at 5:30. So so the bottommost was it's not part of the yoga ladder. It was karma kanda. These are fruitive workers performing rituals for elevation, right? And we saw karma yoga, renouncing the fruits of one's labor. Then higher them is gyan, renouncing fruits, rejecting work involved in partial speculative knowledge and austerity, discerning matter, and still putting their own efforts. Again, Dhyan Yoga is higher. Still, have started meditating, following these things. They are also not involved in any kind of work, right? Bhakti Yoga is the topmost. But why? They are doing everything for Krishna, whether it is work, whether it is meditation, whatever it is. They are doing everything for the Supreme Personality from start to the end, right? Now, what is the primary focus of these different yoga systems, right? So we discussed that transcendence can be realized in 3 different categories, like progressive categories, from Brahman realization to Paramatma to Bhagavan, right? So Gyan Yogi, the primary, their main focus is Brahman realization. Dhyan Yogi, it is Paramatma realization, while Bhakti Yogi, it is realizing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. And there have been different, examples, incidences, where people don't have to go through these progressive rungs of the yoga ladder. People who were different, even people who were purely atheist, but they got stuck, they met a devotee, because devotee association is the most important thing. Only when you come in touch with devotee can you transcend this highest to the bhakti cannot be achieved like this. For bhakti you should have a bhakt who can help you to gain bhakti. That is very important thing, and we see many examples from our scriptures. People like atheists like Valmiki ji, he was pure atheist, right? And we know who he was. He was a dacoit to the extent that he would not be able to take the name of Ram. Then Narad Muni, what did he tell him? Okay, what you do is Maram, Ram, 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 Ram. From Maram, Ram, Ram, Ram came, right? And then from that dacoit, he became what? Valmiki Muni. He didn't follow the yoga ladder. Prachin Barishad is another example from Srimad Bhagavatam. He was full in Karam Kanda. He will do different type of sacrifices. Again, who met him? Narad Muni. Narad Muni gave him instructions of pure devotional service, and he achieved pure love. The next example, a person who was endeavoring to achieve something great, that I want kingdom bigger than my father, huh? Uttanpad. you know. And then fortunately Dhruva also met Narad Muni, and Narad Muni blessed him with a mantra. And then he prayed, and then he had darshan of Krishna, Narayan. And then he said, Narayan, when asked, what do you want? He said, I was looking for pieces of broken glass, but now I have got diamond. Then also Narayan said, ask me something. If I have come, I will bless you. And then you know what did Dhruva ask? Does anyone know? Dhruva said, I just need one thing. Harshad, you know?
Yeah, some place, right? Like, and that's
No,
the
he wanted that place. But then he said that I was looking for broken pieces of glasses. Now I have diamond. Why would I, you know? So he rejected that. That I don't want anything now when I have you in front of me, right? But then Narayan said, you please ask me something. He meditated in our Braj. There is one known as Madhuvan, uh, Mahavan. There he meditated. There is Dhruvatila. You know, he meditated there. His mother said, go to one. There you will get Krishna. And then he said, what I want is just always keep me in association of devotees. So please try to understand what is the importance of being in association of devotees, right? Then, so Dhruva was like, you know, Karma Yogi. And then Kumar, four Kumaras, they were, Jnani transcendentalist, they were fully. But when they smelled the Tulsi, which was on the lotus feet of Narayan, that just the smell of Tulsi transformed their heart to bhakti. And then finally was Vishwamitra. You might have read or heard so many that how he was, after Ashtanga yoga, different practices and how he got deviated, and finally, when he got association of Ram, he was blessed with bhakti. So these that, people don't have to go through progressive layers, of yoga. We can directly achieve bhakti, you know, and that is what we will read in Bhagavad Gita. In the interest of time, I'm not elaborating much, but I will maybe cover in the next session that how Krishna is gradually taking us, you know to introducing bhakti yoga in Bhagavad Gita, right? So uh, these are different things which are in different rungs of yoga ladder or different processes. So karma kanda is what it involves, associate, it gives karma kandi people are following the scriptures, so that is their one good thing. And what karm yogi, what do they have in addition to following scriptures? They have detachment. They follow scriptures, but they are detached to the result, right? And what do Gyan Yogi have? So they follow scriptures, they are detached, and they have knowledge, right? And what do Dhyana Yogi have more than Gyan Yogis? They meditate. So they start meditating. And Bhakti Yogi, who are the topmost, what addition they have? They follow scriptures, they are detached, they are in knowledge, they meditate. But what more?
devotional love.
Yes, they are in love. Love is the most important thing. Preeti Purga, Bhajatam Preeti Purvakam. The love they have. Many people ask, what meditation? We don't do these, Ashtanga yoga and all. So what meditation? Our meditation is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Our meditation is, you know, this, meditating on the holy names of Krishna, right? So that is the most important thing. So, Dipesh ji, do you have any question?
No, Sumit.
Okay. So that is actually, that was my last slide basically for today. Uh, so now I will take you on to the, uh, we will, just, I'll, if someone has any question, if you can ask. Okay, so seems this was an easy and easily understood topic.
No, we need this whole week to understand and ask questions again.
Right. Just assimilate it, right? Take your time. Harshad, do you have anything?
No. Quite heavy, as Sanmukji just mentioned. Maybe a week. That is also very
There is,
optimistic.
there is a electrification.
Yeah, actually, this is introduction of a different concept. And because Krishna changes gears, it was very important for us to introduce you to this thing, because otherwise people get confused that Krishna speaks this and then that. So through everything, he wants to take us towards bhakti. So that is the most important thing for us to understand. And all, if you see the Vedant and the natural commentary on Vedant, which is Srimad Bhagavatam, it is bhakti. Yeah. So yeah, please take your own time, and even I will take my own time. Maybe I will also try to understand. This is not easy. Yeah, to understand Bhagavad Gita, to assimilate and all these things. But yes, the more we go into the depth of Bhagavad Gita, the more it will unfold uh, you know to us, right? So yeah. So if no questions, then we will just chant names of Krishna. Uh, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shrivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda. I'll chant 5 times. Right? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram,